Xin chào các bạn, Phan Anh đây. Hôm nay mình sẽ làm một cái video về một kiểu mà hồi trước bạn anh hay làm. Một thứ mà hồi trước bạn anh hay làm cho cái video trước. Đấy là để được ra cái bịt mắt lại, nghe video xong rồi nhắc lại theo. Bởi vì hồi trước anh làm cái đấy xong rồi Phan Anh nghe thấy rất là buồn cười. Phan Anh không hiểu tại sao anh anh hay bị vấp như thế. Xong rồi anh bảo là anh thích anh làm đi, để xem anh có giỏi không. Thì đấy, hôm nay mình sẽ chấp nhận thử thách đấy, xong mình sẽ làm. Có bí mắt đây, có video đây, chưa ấn play. Mình chưa nghe video này bao giờ. Nhìn cái tít có vẻ hay thôi, nó là một cái TED Talk. Yeah. Yeah. Được chưa? Ok, nào, ấn play. Ấn play. The human voice is the instrument that we all play. It's the most powerful sound in the world. Probably it's the only one that we can start a word or say I love you. And yet many people have the experience that when they speak, people don't listen to them. Why is that? How can we speak powerfully to make change in the world? What I'd like to suggest is that there are a number of habits that we need to remove away from. I assemble for pleasure here 7 deadly sins of speaking. I'm not pretending that this is an exhaustive list, but these 7 I think are pretty large. The habits that we can all fall into. The first, gossip. Speaking ill of somebody who's not present. Not a nice habit, and we know perfectly well the person gossiping 5 minutes later will be gossiping about us. Second, judging. We know people who are like this in conversation, and it's very hard to listen to somebody if you know that you're being judged and found wanting at the same time. Third, negativity. You can fall into this. My mother-in-law became very negative. It's hard to listen to. I remember one day I said to her, it's October the 1st today, and she said, I know, it's a bit dreadful. It's hard to listen to when somebody is that negative. And another form of negativity, complaining. And complaining, this is the national part of the UK. Is our national sport. We complain about the weather, about sport, about politics, about everything, but actually complaining is viral misery. It's not spreading sunshine and likeness in the world. Excuses. We've all met this guy. Maybe we've all been this guy. Some people have a blame throw. They just pass it on to everybody else who don't take responsibility for their actions. And again, part of the penultimate, 6 of the 7, embroidery, exaggeration. It demeans our language actually sometimes. For example, if I say someone that is awesome, what do I call it? And then of course, this exaggeration becomes lying. We don't listen to people who are lying to us. And finally, dogmatism. The confusion of facts with opinions. When those two things get conflated, you're listening into the wind. You know somebody's bombarding you with their opinions as if they were true. It's difficult to listen to that. And here they are. 7 deadly sins of speaking. These are things I think we need to move up. But is there a positive way to think about this? Yes, there is. I'd like to suggest that there are 4 really powerful cornerstones, foundations that we can stand on if you want our speech to be powerful and to make change in the world. Fortunately, these things spell a word, hail. The word is hail. And there's a definition as well. I'm not talking about the stuff that falls from the sky and hit you in the head. Acclaim enthusiastically, which is how word will be received if we stand on these 4 things. So what they stand for? The H, honesty, of course. Being true in what you say, being straight and being clear. The A is authenticity, being yourself. A friend of mine described this as standing in your own truth, which I think is a lovely way to put it. The I is integrity, being a word, doing what you say, being someone you can trust. And the L is love. I don't mean romantic love, but I do mean wishing people well. For 2 reasons. First of all, I think absolute honesty may not be what we want. I mean, perhaps that's not necessary Tempered with love, of course, honesty is a great thing. But also, if you're really wishing somebody well, it's very hard to judge them at the same time. I'm not even sure you can do those two things simultaneously. So hail. Also, now that's what you say, and it's slightly off. Is also in the way that you say it. You have an amazing toolbox. This instrument is incredible. Yes, this is a toolbox that not many people open. Not have a thought, rummage in there every now and then, pull a few tools out, take a few to play with, which will increase the power of your speaking. Register, for example. Now, falsetto register may not be very useful at most of the time, but there's a register in between. I'm not going to get very technical. You can locate your voice, however. So if I talk up here in my nose, you can hear the difference. If I go down here in my throat, which is where most of us speak from most of the time, but if you want weight, we need to go down here to the chest. You hear the difference? We vote for politicians with lower voices. True. Because we associate depth with power and with authority. That's register. And we have timbre, is the way your voice feels. The way research feels, we prefer voices that are rich, warm, like hot chocolate. But if that's not you, that's not the end of the world. Because you can train, go get a voice coach. There are amazing things you can do with breathing posture exercises, which will improve the timbre of your voices. Then prosody. I love prosody. This is the sing sound, the middle language that we use in order to impart root one for meaning. Conversations. Notes are quite hard to listen to if they don't have any prosody at all. That's where the word monotonic comes from. We're monotonous, monotone. Also, we have repetitive proses coming in when it's actually not a question, it's a statement. And if you repeat that over and over, is actually restricting your ability to communicate through prosody, which I think is a shame. So let's try and break that habit. Pace. I can get very excited, or I can slow right down to emphasize. And at the end of that, of course, is our old friend, silence. There's nothing wrong with a bit of silence in the talk, is there? We don't have to think. Fake ums and ahs can be very powerful. Of course, pitch often goes along with pace to communicate arousal, which you can do with where did I leave my keys? Where did you leave my keys? Is there a slightly different meaning in those two deliveries? And finally, volume. I can get really excited by using volume. Sorry about that. If I startle everybody, or I can. Some people broadcast the whole time. Try not to do that. That's called broadcasting. Imposing your sound on people around you carelessly and inconsiderately, not nice. Of course, where this all comes into play most of all is when you got something really important to do. It might be giving a talk to people. It might be imposing, asking for a raise, a wedding speech, whatever it is. If it's really important to you, you owe to yourself to look at this toolbox and the engine, if it's going to work on. And no engine works well without being warmed up. Warm up your voice. Actually, let me show you how to do that. Would you all like to stand up for a moment? I'm going to show you the 6 vocal warm-up exercises that I do before every talk I ever do. Anytime you want to talk to anybody important, do these. First, thumbs up, deep breath in, and sigh out. Like that. One more time. Very good. Now we're going to warm up our lips. I'm going to go bok, 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 bok. And now, just like when you were a kid. Now your lips should be coming alive. We're going to do the tongue next with an exaggerated la 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 la. Beautiful. You're getting really good at this. And then the roll an R. Okay. That's like champagne for the tongue. Finally, and if I can only do one, the pros call this the siren. Is really good. It starts with we and goes to all the. So you go wee. Fantastic. You give yourself a round of applause. Thank you, thank you. Next time you speak, do those in advance. let me put this in context to close. This is a serious point here. This is where we are now. We speak not very well into people who are simply listening in an environment that's all about noise in different phases. What would the world be like if we were speaking powerfully to people who are listening consciously in an environment which are fit for purpose? Or to make that a bit larger, what would the world be like if we were creating sound consciously and consuming sound consciously and designing all our environment consciously with sound? That would be a world that does sound beautiful, and one where understanding would be the norm, and that is an idea worth spreading. Thank you. Thấy chưa? Thế rồi. Anyway, chói mắt quá. Oh my god. Khó hơn mình nghĩ. Chói quá. Khó hơn mình nghĩ. Anh có vẻ khá là giỏi. Đó, hết rồi. Vừa đấy là bao nhiêu? Chắc là 10 phút rồi. Nếu mà ông ấy nói nhanh hơn một tí là mình sẽ vấp. Bởi vì mình trong một cái giây mình nghĩ trong đầu mà ông đã qua khoảng 3 giây rồi. Đấy, cho nên là rất là khó đi theo được. Đấy. Nếu mình dùng não để hiểu xem là ông ấy đang nói gì thì sẽ càng mất thời gian thêm. Đấy là cái khó. Chắc là cái khó của cái này. Thì đó, mình đã hiểu. Cái này anh gọi là gì? Anh gọi là shadowing. Đấy. Thì là có bạn hỏi hồi trước ở trong livestream là mình có thực hiện cái shadowing này không? Thì mình bảo không. Thì mình cũng có thể hiểu được cái appeal của nó. Đúng. Nhưng mà nếu mà mình không biết là cái này nó có giúp mình nói một cách trôi chảy hay không, bởi vì mình đang nói đuổi theo một cái video mà mình không quan tâm đến cái nội dung nó là cái gì. Đấy. Như lúc nãy mình nói là nếu mình quan tâm nội dung thì mình sẽ nói chậm lại và mình sẽ coi như bị cắt cái đoạn này đi, cắt khoảng 1-2 giây đi. Anyway, đó.
Mục đích của nó lúc mà làm kiểu này nó sẽ làm tăng cái khả năng nghe thụ động.
Nghe thụ động.
Tức là khi mà chẳng như là đang làm dở một việc gì đó ấy, mà ngôn từ nó vẫn tự động vào đầu và mình vẫn nạp vào được. Và nó cũng là tăng cái tốc độ cử động của miệng nữa.
Ok, đấy là comment của anh. Các bạn nghĩ nào? Hãy comment. Đấy, thế thôi. Anyway, nếu các bạn thấy cái này fun thì mình có thể làm tiếp. Đó. Bye bye, stay safe. Nghe nói Việt Nam đã mở lại. Các bạn đi làm vui vẻ nhé. Bye bye.